Thank you for watching Let's Talk Parenting, the program that talks about everything to do with being a parent. I am Veronica Kasonga Fruitful, and I pray that as you watch this that you are going to be blessed. You're going to learn something, just one thing that you can apply to your life that's going to make a significant difference to you and your family. Today I want to talk to us about our assignment, yours and mine assignment. So if you remember back to when you perhaps went to college or university, you'll remember that at the end of the semester, the professors always give us an assignment to complete. This would tell them whether we've learned anything or not. Well, that's not the assignment I'm going to talk about today, no. I'm going to talk about the assignment that has been given to us by our Creator, especially if you are a parent. And I believe you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this. So the number one assignment that has been given to us by our Creator, if you're a parent, is your family. Whether you're married with children or you're a single parent, then the number one assignment that you have, the number one responsibility you have is your family, your children that you're raising up so wonderfully. And I want to talk about this because we are living at a time where we are all really busy. We are all, trying to get jobs done. We're all pursuing dreams, and, we're all preoccupied with our goals that we're trying to achieve. And in the midst of doing all of that, we can become preoccupied and our family can become secondary. So this is a reminder for us that, it's great to be pursuing visions and dreams. And I'm a big fan of visions and dreams. I have a big wall full of my visions and my dreams that I'm also pursuing. But I'm always reminded of the fact that when God comes, and He will come, He will not be asking me about my Mercedes-Benz that's parked on my driveway. He's not going to ask me about the mansion that I'm trying to build up. He's not going to ask me about the job that I spend 24 hours trying to get done. No. He's going to ask me about that one important job that He gave me, which is to make sure that I raise up my children in the way that they should grow, so that when they are older, they won't depart from it. That's in the book of Proverbs 22:6. It tells us that we are to raise up children in the way that they need to grow, so they will not lose their way as they become adults. I'm talking about this, because sometimes in the process of, pursuing dreams and goals, we can get distracted, and we can say to ourselves, okay, you know what, let me just focus, let me just work on this, building this vision, this dream, this house, this company, let me work on it, and then I'll make time for my children, then I'll make time for my wife or husband. But what we forget is that in the process of doing all of that, our children are also growing. Before you know it, your daughter finishes secondary school. My son, before I know it, he'll be leaving the house, going off university or to start his own family. So it's really important to be aware, as well as it's important to be pursuing dreams and goals, that our family is our number one assignment that has been given to us. And some of us might be thinking that, well, why is this important? Because I make sure that my kids go to school. I make sure they're not getting into trouble like Joe Black, next door neighbor, whose kids she's always screaming at. So, I'm doing a pretty good job. And you are. That's wonderful. It's great to make sure that our kids are going to school and behaving themselves. But what I've learned over the years is that when it comes to bringing up children, it's about more than just making sure they're behaving themselves and that they've got great school attendance, which I really do rate. It's about building character. It's about helping them, to learn, to develop the characteristics that will help them navigate through life. Life is full of challenges, as you and I both know, that challenges come and go, some expected, some unexpected, and they need to develop the personalities that will help them to be able to get through all of that. And some of those characteristics are things like self-esteem, or self-confidence. That is so crucial. They need to be developing self-discipline. They need to develop their social competence, which is about the skills to be able to get on with others, work with others, understand other people's body language. They need to develop self-autonomy, which is independence. All of these skills and more are so crucial for a healthy, successful adult life. And over the coming weeks, I'm going to break these down and talk a bit more about how we as parents can help our children develop this. Because I don't know if you've ever come across this, but having worked with a range of different children, sometimes you come across, particularly in school, when I worked in school, you come across children who are really quiet. They do as they're told. They're really well behaved. If you've got more than 2 children, you may have a child who is similar to this. They're very well behaved. And you can think that, oh, that's such a lovely child. That's such an amazing child, because they always do as they're told. They're very well behaved and they listen and they follow the rules. But they do say that the quiet ones are the ones that we have to look out for, and we have to pay attention to. Why? Because you don't know what they're thinking. A lot of children, and I'm not saying all children who are quiet, but sometimes those are signs of low self-esteem. The child could be thinking, I'm not worthy, nobody cares about me, I better do as I'm told, otherwise. So they could be thinking all sorts of things. And so it's really important to be paying attention to little things like that. It reminds me of a very old episode of Neighbours that I used to watch. It's an Australian soap. It still goes on, but I don't watch it anymore. But in this particular episode that I watched back in the 90s, it was a story about a mother who had a son and a daughter. The son was really smart, really educated, and did as he was told. Whilst the daughter, she was really vibrant, outgoing personality, getting into trouble often. So mom was always on her case, because she's always doing something she should not be doing. So she paid a lot of attention to this child. Now, because of that, the son, I believe he kind of started feeling like he wasn't getting enough attention. So he decided to basically start blackmailing his own mom. So he starts sending her all these letters and messages, and she starts getting scared. She reports it to the police, and they start investigating to find out who's doing all of this, who's threatening her. Everyone was worried. They looked into this. They investigated. And they tried to think, they thought about all the criminals that has been in the neighborhood. They thought about all the people they perhaps owed money or had issues with. And all along, they couldn't figure out the person who was doing this was actually the son who lived. Why? Because he came across as lovely, innocent, doesn't do anything bad. He's the good boy. He was actually a geek, and they even called him that, which he didn't really like very much. But so he ended up doing all of this, just to get back at his mom. And all along, they were guessing other people. He was actually getting more frustrated because he wanted the attention. He wanted to be noticed, but it wasn't happening. So he upped up his game. He decided to basically kidnap his own mom. And in the process of doing that, he ended up revealing himself. When his mom asked him why, because it was such a shock, why would you do this? Well, his response was just purely the fact that she paid all of her attention, most of her attention, to the daughter instead of him. Now, I hope this story doesn't horrify you. I'm not suggesting that our children are going to become like that. Remember, it's just a TV series. But I'm illustrating the point that sometimes children who are quiet, it's not necessarily because they are good and everything is wonderful and happy with them. There could be all sorts of things that's going on in their mind. So developing these characteristics is really crucial for every child, no matter who they are, no matter what they come across as. Sometimes I think about raising children as if you are basically building a house. If you think about building a house, I don't know if you've ever noticed in any area that you live in, but when when builders are building a house, they always focus on the foundation. They always spend their time making sure that the ground is good. They always spend ages, and you can walk past a building site and think they've been doing this for ages. When are we ever going to see this building, this house that they're building? It takes a long time, and the reason they do that is because it's so important to make sure that you laid the foundation correctly, that you laid the foundation well. Because if the foundation isn't strong, then this house is not going to be able to withstand strong weathers. It's not going to be able to withstand Hurricane Katrina. Thank God we don't have that here in England, but you know what I mean. So it's really crucial to make sure that they spend their time laying the foundation correctly, because the foundation is the key to holding the entire house when they finally lay the house down. And bringing up children is the same process. It's really important to lay the foundation, because that is what is going to hold them up when they grow up, when they become adults. If they have strong foundation. And there are key things that we have to put in place when they are growing up, when they're young, so that it will help them to be able to sustain. So like I say, I've mentioned some of them, making sure that they're developing their confidence, they're developing discipline, they're learning to be independent, they're learning social skills that will enable them to go out there, go into work. There's so many skills that you need for the workplace now, and we can sometimes depend on schools to build these skills in our children. But the truth of it is that it is not actually the responsibility. They contribute, but it's not really the responsibility of the school to instill these characteristics in our children. It's our responsibility to do that. So as I mentioned earlier, these characteristics are self-esteem, self-discipline, self-autonomy, and social competence. Over the weeks, I'm going to break this down and develop them and help us to learn what we can do to help them develop that. So make sure you subscribe so that you can keep up to date, and also share this so that other parents can also benefit from it. But I'm not going to make you wait that long for you to, start doing some of these things already. So I'm going to share with you 5 key things that you can already start right now to help your children begin to develop the characteristics that they need. And I'm pretty sure that you are already doing some of them, but here it goes. Number 1, the first thing is prayer. I don't know how to emphasize this, but prayer is key to a lot of things. It doesn't matter what your religious background is, but if you are a person of faith, if you are Christian or whatever, then it's really important that we pray for our children. And our children can be so annoying sometimes that we do not want to even be thinking about praying for them, but we need to be praying for our children. There is a story in the Bible, in the book of Numbers. It is a story, no, not the book of Numbers, sorry. It is a story in the book of Nehemiah, chapter 4. It's an amazing story about Nehemiah, who was a Jewish leader. And he heard about how the walls of Jerusalem had fallen, and that no one was caring for it anymore, and that it was neglected. The children of Israel had, forgotten the way of God, and they were living their lives. And he felt very compassionate and sad about this. So he asked for permission by his boss, Alan Sugar. I'm kidding. Alan Sugar is not in the Bible. But he asked permission from the king, who was in charge in those days, if he can go and basically rebuild Jerusalem. And he was granted the favor, and he went to rebuild it. He gathered together all the tribes of Israel. There are 12 tribes of Israel, and he gathered all of them together and told them, he was a great leader. He was so empowering. He got them together and he said, we need to rebuild Jerusalem. So they got to work. They started to rebuild it. In the process of building it, they were interrupted. There were enemies. There were enemies who were constantly badgering them, attacking them, all so that they don't finish their mission. They don't complete what they had started. So Nehemiah in chapter 4, verse 13, I'm going to read exactly what it says because I really like it, 13 and 14. Nehemiah tells the children of Israel this. He says, therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest points of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords, their spears, and their bows. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, the rest of the people, do not be afraid. Remember the Lord your God. He's great and awesome. And he said, fight for your families. He said, fight for your sons, fight for your daughters, fight for your wives, and fight for your home. We are living at a time where it's so important that we don't become distracted. We are at a time where technology and so many other things are distracting us. And in the process of that distraction, our children are being impacted. I work with young people, so I've seen so much hurt in young people, so many things that they're getting into that they shouldn't. Why? Because the foundation has been disturbed. The foundation has been interrupted. The foundation is not there. They haven't got, the stability that they need so that they can grow up in the way that they need to grow. So it's really important that we pray for our children as they're going out there into society. They are not just learning from us, but they're also learning from various different people. And all these people are having an impact on their lives. So we need to be praying for them as they're going out into the world, learning different things, to remember who they are, to just pray for them so that they can do really well in school. The second thing is to build relationships. No matter how much you can tell a person you love them, whether you tell your wife, your husband, your child, you love them, if you do not spend any time with them, then those words mean absolutely nothing. The word love is an action word, it's a verb, and there's something that is required to be done to demonstrate that. Like Jesus demonstrated his love by dying for us. So as we tell our children that we love them, it's important that we also show it. And the way we show it is through spending time with them, whether they want to or not. My son's a teenager. He absolutely is like, Mom, you don't need to do this. I'm fine. I'm like, no, we're doing this. So we do it. And what professionals recommend is that you try and spend at least 15 minutes with each of your child. If you can just make the time to spend at least 15 minutes with your child, get to know them, let them get to know you, ask you questions, and just develop that bonding relationship. The third thing is modeling. Now, there's a quote that I read not long ago. I just found it online. It said, do not worry that your children don't listen to you. Worry that they are watching you. And this was so powerful. It's basically saying that children learn by what they see more than what we tell them. So if you want your child to behave a certain way, we have to set the example first and they will follow. The fourth thing is engage them. It's so important to engage children into activities that will help them to build the characteristics that they need. So get them involved in clubs, get them involved in after school activities, football, tennis, drama. Drama is a good one for building self-confidence because they have to talk. So get them involved in things that will help them to develop these characteristics. And the fifth and final one is give them permission. Now, I'm going to do an individual session on this one because it's so important. Give them permission. What do I mean by that? And what permission am I referring to? Give them permission to make mistakes. One of the big reasons why we adults don't pursue our goals and our dreams and become who we were created to become is because we are afraid to make mistakes. We're afraid to get it wrong. We're afraid that it's going to fall apart and not work. Where does this fear come from? It comes from the fact that when we were growing up, and I'm not saying it's the only reason, but one of the reasons or one of the places where it comes from the fact that when we were growing up, we were not given permission to make mistakes. You ever notice when your child wears shoes the wrong way around, you correct them. Every time a child breaks a glass, you shout at them. All of these things that we are doing, we're not giving our children permission to make mistakes. So that's why I'm mentioning this. So that's the fifth point. Give children permission. I know how long it took me to finally start doing this YouTube video. I remember, I think it was about 3 years ago, I said it to my sister that I wanted to start doing YouTube videos, and I wanted it to be on something to do with parenting, because that is what my passion is, parenting. But and she thought it was a good idea, and she was like, yeah, go for it. But then I started making my excuses. But the truth of it is, and my sister noticed this, and she said to me, you know what your problem is? You just want things to be perfect. And she was so right. I used to suffer from perfectionism. Everything has to be a certain way. I have to have everything that I need. And then I would do whatever it is that I'm supposed to do. But thank God I've overcome that, and I finally started. Yay. So here I am. But I am mentioning just to say that, how we are growing up, what we are learning from childhood, it does end up having an impact on who we become as adults. So give children permission to make mistakes. There's so much I want to share with you, but I'm running out of time. So subscribe so that you can keep posted. You can stay in touch with me. And also sharing is caring. Share this information with others so that they can also learn what we're learning, so we can all grow together. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Have a fantastic week. I'll see you next time.